Hello and welcome back to Ant Holleufer. So, today we are back with the Myrmica Rubra colony. I can say already now, a little surprise is that this plant is just dead. Not dead, but it's very weird. More on that later in the episode. So we need some names for the Formicarium, and the first minute and a half in the video will be focusing on names. But if you want to skip that, there'll be a mark right here of where you need to skip to if you don't want to be involved in the naming process. But yeah, welcome back to Ant Holleufer and welcome back to the Myrmica Rubra colony update 4. So we're in kind of a situation where I'm having a hard time calling the different places in the Formicarium and different named things. So I think we need to name the Formicarium a little bit. But not the Formicarium itself, but just the places inside the Formicarium. So in this episode we're gonna vote for 3 different options of how many areas we will want in the Formicarium. And the first option is number 1. So if you want to vote for this, just say I want number 1. Because number 1 means that we have 2 different parts of the Formicarium. We have the left side and the right side. So that's number 1. So this is option number 2, where we have the plants on the left side in one area, and the plants and a little bit of the foreground in the middle area. And lastly, the right area where we have a feeding dish, sometimes the water bottle is there, and the last plant. So again, already now, just calling these things, it's kind of confusing. And the last option is kind of the plant-based option. We have the left side, where it's just plant and plain. We have the middle, where it's just one specific plant. And we have the right side, where it's again one specific plant. And lastly, we have the feeding area, which is the bottom side. So depending on what people want, we'll either choose 1, 2 or number 3. The number that has been commented the most will be our naming session for next time. So if we pick number 1 in the next episode, that we'll be needing 2 new names for the Formicarium. And if we have number 2 or number 3, we'll have 3 or 4 names required. And yeah, let's start the video. It was a nice evening for the Myrmica Rubra colony. For a while I've been wanting to check out how many ants were actually active at night, because most species are a lot more active at night than they are at day. In the evenings fall and the nights return, I went to look at the ants. And immediately I started taking these time lapse to kind of get a visual of how many ants there were walking around. And I felt like there were a fair bit more than on a regular scale. But I immediately saw a dead body getting carried around. And that is a problem we have had from the beginning. But look how big the problem is today. Bodies everywhere. I don't know why the ants don't know where to place it. I know Myrmica Rubra colonies have a tendency to not really know where to place it, and they need around 3 meters away from the nest to put their dead bodies in a real world scenario. But how do we do this inside a Formicarium? Please leave a comment down below if you have any suggestions. Else the colony haven't really been that active in their sugar hunt. I'm giving them some sugar pretty often inside this ball, but they're not really that active. But going to one of the weird side of this Formicarium is this plant right here. What has happened to it? From one day to another, it just fell down. It just couldn't stand up anymore. And I've been told by one of my local plant experts, aka my girlfriend's mother, that these plants should actually be hanging down from a plant. So it may be because it's a hanging plant, I don't know. So after these night/evening shots I've made, I started to wonder something. If this plant right here is falling over and starting to die, are the ants still living inside the plant? And where are the ants actually living at? Because when I'm looking at the ants, I'm not really sure where they're coming from. In my eyes they're coming from everywhere, and just by looking at the Formicarium now, they're everywhere. So let's try to find out where they are living at. So it was now time to find out where were the ants hiding, where were they living at. So I kicked off my new time lapse to see where were the ants heading to, because I'm pretty sure that they weren't heading over to the plant that has fallen over anymore. So I started to look around and, you know, there were ants everywhere. They're just kind of walking all different direction. So taking a look at their old nest, there were some ants, but I mean, most of it was just being covered up by isopods now. Around episode 2, there came a lot of isopods baby, and pretty much all of them have started to hit adult size. Around a centimeter, 1.5 centimeter long now. And they've just overtaken this old nest. So it isn't in this plant anymore, but I think I may know where they are now. We just need some light and a macro lens. So zoomed in, we can now see a worker walking around this rock, and I'm pretty sure that this rock is I don't know, look at this clip I got the other day. So there's something very special about this rock. I don't know why. There were around 20 workers just going around it, and that's also why I think they might have a nest around here or something. Today though, it only looked like there were one worker, and I don't know what happened back then, because suddenly there were just so many workers just walking around it. But speeding up the time a little bit, we saw an isopod walk over, not one, but 2 other ants. So we still have a few ants in this area, and I still believe that there may be a nest around here. But taking a look around the area, I don't really see a nest entrance. I don't really see that many ants actually. Looking at the plain, brilliantly being covered by plants now, looks amazing in my head, but not really any ants. I saw these 2 ants, I don't know where they came from, but I thought I would follow them. But of course, they went 2 different directions. And after watching this ant for half a minute, I figured it was going to the weird rock. Well, we did have some ants hiding on the backside of this big plant here on the backside of the plane. But all in all, my thought was maybe they don't live in this area after all. Maybe they have a little satellite nest entrance or something. So I took a look at the ants once again, and I started to wonder, is it just me, or is there a lot of ants around this plant here? We really need some name for these plants, areas, things. So I thought, I think there's pretty many ants around here, and this is a good place to do another time lapse. So looking at the time lapse, I'm almost 100% sure that this is their new nest, because there's so much action around this plant and not really any action around the rest of the Formicarium. So I think that this is the new nest entrance. So now that we had an idea of where the nest entrance was, I decided I would do a 1 hour time lapse and just give them 4 chopped up mealworms. And this right here is the time lapse. And watching this back, I was actually fairly surprised that there wasn't that many ants arriving at the scene. I mean, there's a fair bit walking around, but I did expect a lot more. So my conclusion is that the reason there didn't come that many ants is it's just the same old mealworms that I give them 2 or 3 times a week. Sometimes I give them some insects, but mostly it's just mealworms. But also because mealworms ain't that healthy for ants. I mean, they don't have that many crazy good nutritions inside them, so it's also why many people say that you shouldn't feed mealworms, because there isn't that much inside of them. So in my next video, I'm aiming to get some grasshoppers, some really big grasshoppers or something, and just not feed them for an entire week and just give everything to them. But as you can see, we have quite a lot of ants on the scene, but I mean, I'm not really impressed. I thought that would be maybe a trail down to their nest, but there isn't really anything. So I mean, I just wanted to see how many ants that would come out in a 1 hour time lapse, and now I know that it ain't that many. So guys, that's been it for this video. I hope you liked it. I am starting to kind of run out of things to record with this colony right here, since I know next episode I'll feed them some large crickets or something, but I don't really know what to record anymore. So Do you have anything you would like to see at the Myrmica Rubra colony? Because else there'll just be a lot longer between every episode, since there isn't anything real to say about them. And yeah, when you have commented how many places you want in the Formicarium, and what I should do in my next episode with the Myrmica Rubra colony. So yeah guys, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in another video. Bye!